All right, hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dana here, and today I just wanted to do a quick video for those of you who are new to potentially creative real estate, maybe real estate in general, and you've been either following me from my reselling videos that I have back on the channel, or maybe from Instagram, or maybe you just found me on the algorithm. I don't know how it happened that you got here, but I've been posting videos recently of agent calls and or seller calls, talking to them about potentially pitching them creative finance. Most of my calls are about subject to direct to agent, but sometimes they are seller finance, sometimes they might be a novation, sometimes they might be a hybrid, and you probably have way better videos than this out there to look at those, but I figured on my channel I should probably at least have something that kind of outlines it so I could go through, and maybe somebody who found me and is looking at my videos and saying, hey, maybe how could I get into that? Somebody who's maybe doing the reselling world that's followed me from there and wants to transition that into potentially real estate, that this might be a video for you to at least give you like some really high level basics of what we're looking at. So first thing I want to talk about is what is subject to, right? So you hear us talk about subt, right? This is the community that I'm in. It's a paid mentorship that teaches you all things real estate. And one of the big things is creative finance. And one of the big things that people love about it is subject to. So subject to is basically where you would purchase someone's home to take over the existing mortgage, but the debt stays in the seller's name. So the deed to the title, or the deed to the house, which is the ownership, transfers to you as the new owner, and or you can assign that to an end buyer for a fee, which is mostly what I do. So I get a contract from the seller and I say, okay, we're gonna leave the loan in your name. We're gonna start making those payments. We take the deed to the property, which is the ownership of it, and then I sell that contract to an end buyer who funds it, pays me basically a finder's fee, and then performs on that contract going forward. So kind of the benefit to that as a buyer, right? So the end buyer that I'm selling that to is, instead of having to put 20-30% down and get an 8% rate as of today's rates, I think I was just quoted a 9% rate as an investor, you could be taking over, I think my average was like 3.25% over the last year. So instead of taking over an 8 or 9% one and having to go get it in your name, you could go leave it in their name, take over a 3, 4, maybe even a 5% mortgage rate, which makes it cash flow a lot easier as a rental. So that's why it makes a lot of sense for us as the buyers, whether you're keeping it yourself or you're assigning it to someone for a wholesale fee. That's why it makes sense here. For the sellers, why it would make sense is if it's on market and it's not selling, or maybe they bought it at the peak of the market, right? So they owe this much on it, but the market is now just below it. By the time they pay agent fees and commissions, they're negative, right? They would have to pay money out of pocket to get out of this house. And if they're moving across country for a job, college, whatever, right? There's a life change where they need to move, right? Not just that they want to move. If they want to move, they should probably just stay there if they can't sell it for at least a break even. But if they're going to be potentially taking a negative, or maybe barely making anything, right? Maybe they're making 5, 10, maybe even 15,000 bucks, but there's not really much spread. That sounds like a lot of spread, but that's really not a lot of spread in the real estate world. They just weren't able to sell it, right? For whatever reason, they weren't able to sell it. We can come in and say, hey, I will cash you out your equity. I will cover your agent commission. I will cover all the closing costs, and we'll just take over that mortgage going forward, and you can walk away. And so I've had people that were going to write $10,000, $15,000 checks or have to do a short sale, which is going to ruin their credit, where we came in, we took over the mortgage, I sold it to an end buyer. They're making the payments, they've turned it into a rental, they've turned it into a pad split, whatever they decided to do with it. And seller's happy, buyer's happy, and I'm happy because we all got paid in the transaction, and it's a good deal. So anyways, that's what subject to is. And most of the videos you hear me pitching, that's basically what it is. It's a mirror wrap is the strategy specifically that we're using that puts a little more protection on for the sellers. The next thing that I pitch is seller finance. So maybe somebody who is on the complete opposite spectrum of that. They want the top dollar that they can possibly get, and they have no loan on that thing. So if they have no loan on it, we can upgrade them to the bank, potentially pay them some interest, sometimes no interest. If they want, like, house is worth $350,000, they want $375,000, we can say, cool, I'll pay you your $375,000 if we can get 0% interest. And then I don't care, I'll pay you $100,000 over market if we can get 30-year terms and 0% interest, because the payment on a 30-year term and 0% interest, even if I'm paying $100,000 over market, I'll pay less overall than I would pay if I paid a 5% at market rate. If you go like do the math calculation on it, you would pay more over time at a 5% interest at market price than if you paid 100 grand over and 0% interest. So that's seller finance. You basically, the seller agrees to sell their property to us. We would, again, either keep it ourselves as a rental, or we would wholesale and assign that off to somebody else. And then the payments are made directly to the seller or through a third-party servicing company to track those payments until it's paid off. And then you get title to the house, and you can sell it, refinance it, whatever you want to do at any time during there. One of the next things is combining the two together. So maybe somebody who has 100 grand in equity in the house and it's a $600,000 house, but they're still having a hard time selling it because they're stuck on that number, right? They want the high number, but the market's just not bearing it right now with these interest rates. So now they've got 100 grand in spread here, plus an agent commission that has to be paid. And so taking over at subject to probably wouldn't work, because we want to try and stick to like a 10% entry or less. We'll get into kind of what makes a deal in some of these later. But the real basics are a 10% entry or less, a 5.5 interest rate or less, minimal to no rehab, and cash flows as a long-term rental. So the price that we have to pay for all of the costs up front, and then the monthly costs, if it's going to be a $1,500 mortgage payment that we're taking over and we can rent it for $2,000, we can still buffer for property manager, things like that, and be a cash flow positive. If the monthly payment is $1,500 and long-term rental is $1,600, that's a negative deal, because by the time you pay for CapEx, property manager, stuff like that, you're negative. So we want it to be a cash flow positive deal, but sometimes it doesn't have to be cash flow positive. I've sold plenty of deals that were not cash flow positive, and it just has to potentially fit for something better. Pad split, maybe a Airbnb short-term rental, maybe a midterm rental, insurance rentals, things like that. So that $100,000 spread might fit for what we call a hybrid. And a hybrid is where we take over the $500,000 subject to, and we just take over making that payment directly to the bank. We would give them most likely a down payment, so say $20,000 on that $100,000. So we'll say, cool, we'll give you $20,000, we'll cover your agent commission, we'll cover all the closing costs, and then the other 70, 60, whatever you determine is a fair number on the balance of that equity, or maybe even it's all 80. You would then give that to the seller in a monthly payment over time. I'll leave a link down in the description of like how you would calculate what that payment might be to be able to determine if you add that on top of the monthly payment from just the PITI that you would be taking over the mortgage, on how that would play out and whether or not it will cash flow. But so check the links down in the description that can help you do that math. One of the next things that we have, option 2, is so maybe we're talking to a seller, right? Maybe it was an off-market property, an expired listing. You could then potentially pitch what's called a novation. A novation is where you say, hey, there's not enough spread to really wholesale this, or maybe the interest rate isn't that amazing, or maybe it's a 6.5%, it's a 7%, right? That's not a number where we're going to want to come over and take that over. If you remember what I said before, it's got to be like 5.5% interest rate or below. Maybe it works still at like a 6, but if it's like a 6.5, a 7, nobody wants to take that over, because that's getting close enough to what you could just get on market, and ain't nobody got time for that. So we are not going to take those over. But if there's enough spread in there where you can get it at 70, 80% to market value, and or maybe they needed to do some rehab, it needed to be painted, maybe it needed new floors, maybe it needed like new ceiling fans, like just some basic cheap upgrades, you could potentially pitch either a JV partnership where you say, hey, how about I fund the repairs for that property? I'll come in and have my crew paint it. I'll have my crew come in and take care of the landscaping. I'll have my crew come in and change out all the light fixtures. We will then relist it on the market, and or I'll market it to investor partners of my own, and we'll commit to you a certain dollar amount. So say it's $350,000 that the seller wants. You'd say, cool, we'll commit you to the $350,000. I'll do all the repairs and everything else. I'll pay the agent commissions, and anything above the repairs, the agent commissions, etc., then I get to keep that as my profit on the deal. So you could potentially do this without even doing any repairs to it. I'm actually closing one of these later this week where there's going to be minimal. We're going to paint like some trim, but like basically no repairs or minimal cost. And we're going to put it on the market. And then so for this example, this guy wants $295,000. we can list the property for $350 is the expectation that my agent friend gave me. And so after agent fees and all that stuff, there's about a $20,000 to $25,000 spread there that I could keep. The seller doesn't want to do the repairs. He doesn't want to finish cleaning out the house. He doesn't like agents and doesn't want to pay agent commissions. So for this situation, it's too tight for like a wholesale spread. It's too tight for a wholesale spread, but this could work for a novation where we say, cool, we'll commit to your $295. We'll list it above there. Worst case that happens, we take a lower offer and I just don't make as much money, but he still gets committed his $295. That's how a novation works. And then potentially one of the other things that you could do is, look, maybe none of those work. And they're like, well, if I'm going to list with an agent anyways, I have the money to do the repairs. I have the money to clean it up. I have the contacts to do the things that need to be done. Maybe just refer them to an agent, right? And that can potentially still turn into money for you. So if you go and you say, hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, this may not be the best option for you at this time, but how about I do this? I know some killers in the real estate world that are great agents. And if you'd like, I can refer you to one of them who can sell your house. They'll get the best pictures. They'll do a complete market analysis and tell you exactly what you can expect to get for your house. How about I just refer you over to them and let them, kind of walk you through that. And they're going to say, yeah, cool, I'm fine with that. And then you can go to whatever agents that you have in your network and say, hey, cool, hey, I've got a listing for you. If it closes, just give me a kickback, 1% or 0.5% or $500 or whatever. You guys need to determine what's fair. The more listings that you bring them, the higher amount they're going to pay you. So maybe the first one you give them is for free and you say, hey, I'm just going to give you this listing for free. Next time you get an investor lead, I want you to send it to me and let me have first shot at it. And or you say, hey, if I was to bring you a lead, what do you pay for referrals? And let them tell you what they're willing to pay. And then just be like, cool, yeah, I'm fine with that. Or you counter whatever you can want to do. But you can get monetized that way. So just referring them that lead could potentially put hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in your pocket. So anyways, that's the gist of what we're doing. Those are the different kind of strategies. There's a million other strategies, but those are mostly what I'm working with personally in my business. I spend most of my day pulling lists on PropStream and Batch. And then I call agents all day and say, hey, tell me about this property. Would this maybe work for them? We figure out if there's a problem, because we get paid to solve problems for sellers who can't sell another way. And that's what we do. So if you are interested in more, I would love comments or questions down below of if any of that was said too fast or didn't make sense. I'm trying to condense this just a little bit to be digestible. If you want more videos, you could go search Pace Morby or Jamil Damji or Jerry Norton or anybody like that who potentially could walk you through in more in-depth. And my phone is absolutely blown up because I just turned on an automation where I'm sending out a bunch of blast texts to agents, and they're responding back to me right now. So I'm going to get into that, but I hope this was a good video. Again, links down in the description. Ask me questions if you would like me to go over a specific topic. I will have topics coming up soon about how to pull a list in Batch, how to pull a list in PropStream, how to pull a list using PropWire, which is free, how to pull a list using Zillow, which is free, how to JV. So if, say, you go out there and you start taking this action and you find a deal and you want to bring it to somebody like me because you're like, I don't have the contracts, I don't know what a transaction coordinator is, I don't know how to completely sell this to somebody, DM me on Instagram at Dana Invests. I will walk you through it. I will do the deal with you and we will get you paid. So got a lot of videos coming up, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see them. So appreciate you watching. Bye.